I wish it was video because I would put it, I'm going to put it on my website.
Okay.
But when you have videos, people watch it.
Welcome to the Invention Stories on YouTube. I'm your host, Robert Bear, and thank you for watching our interview with Connie Inukai. We first shared her story on the audio-only Invention Stories podcast back on May 9th, 2021. Please be sure to subscribe, comment, and like. Now let's roll. Mother, grandmother, retired college professor, the inventor of the tip and split, the founder of Grandmapreneurinventor.com, ping pong player, and so much more. Connie Inukai is a fellow member of the One Pitch with Jared and Karina Facebook group, and Connie shared a post this week that she had won a pitch contest. Connie Inukai is smart, accomplished, and on the line from Maryland, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the podcast, Connie. It's great to have you with us today, and I'd like to start off by asking, I see that you grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
How did you like growing up there?
I had a lot of friends there, but it wasn't really so inspiring for me, except the Cleveland Indians. I love baseball, and Cleveland Indians really love fans. So they used to give us, when you're a kid and going to school, they would give us every A you got on your report card, they would give us a free game. And if you got straight A's, they would give you season tickets. So my sister and I always got straight A's. So we went to every single game. And I have 4 younger brothers, and they never got straight A's. So we would just take them along with us and pay for their tickets. So I went to every Indians game growing up. So that was my favorite part about Cleveland. You know, it's very funny because my mother was very into baseball as well. Uh-huh. And I found this program from a game with the Cleveland Indians. The Cleveland Brown, no, a football game, the Cleveland Browns versus the New York Yankees, something like that. And it was the Browns game versus, now I can't remember it, but it was the Cleveland Indians, but the program, they used to be the Cleveland Brown, I forget this, I don't remember, but it was from 1957, a game that my mother went to, and on the program it said Cleveland Browns versus New York Yankees. Nobody knows that. I have that. I don't know what to do with it because I'm sure when I'm gone, my children will just throw it away.
Oh, no, don't do that. Shoot.
Yeah.
I viewed your photo book. You have it on one of your websites. You have many websites. And I really got to learn like your history, and you had put it together. It looked like your grandparents on your mother's side were supposed to come to the United States from Poland on the Titanic. Is this correct?
Exactly. I didn't even know about that. They had to cancel their trip because my grandma had morning sickness. So they canceled it, and their tickets were for the Titanic. And who would have known that? And I knew about it because I started researching my ancestry, and I learned about that from my cousin, who was my uncle's son, and he told me about that, and he sent me the pictures, and my mother never told me. So I included that history because I want my children and my grandchildren to know that they're here because my grandma had morning sickness and had to cancel her trip on the Titanic. So I learned so many stories by doing research with my relatives. Some of the things I absolutely never knew. So I encourage everybody to ask their parents or grandparents, whether they're still alive, for any stories they have. Now my parents are gone, so I'm finding out from other relatives some of the stories. And then a lot of them are from me because I have a good memory. So another story that I have is my dad. I asked him, what's your middle name? And he said, I don't have one. So I used to call him David Nothing Balcher. And after he died, I looked him up in Ancestry, and one of my distant relatives was looking up history about him, and they saw that he had a different last name. And I had no idea about it, and I can't ask him now. So I don't want my children and grandchildren to have questions about me. So everybody's going to know about me, of my descendants. Future generations are going to know about me.
And they're going to know about you because you put together a wonderful book, which is part of your Write Your Own Selfie. Is that correct?
Right, because I'm an inventor. I like to have names, so I trademarked the name Write Your Selfie. And I chose that name for a real good reason, in my opinion. It's because millennials are all into selfies. And older people, the older generation, we don't do selfies. So I'm going to let us be a part of selfies. So I call this Write Your Selfie. And it's a selfie because it's not your typical memoir. Most memoirs people write are like 1,000 pages. And I've had a few people contact me. They want help with their memoir, and it's 1,000 pages. And I don't help them with that because I don't think that anybody wants to read 1,000 pages. Nobody wants to write it, and certainly no one wants to read it. But for my book, it's kind of fun to read it. You can just flip through the pages, and I try to put captions that will inspire my children and my grandchildren. So mine is not your typical life memory book. It's more like a picture book with captions.
What's the name of the website?
It's called www.writeyourselfie.com. If you subscribe to it, I'll give you some tips to get you started on writing yours. Because my main goal is to help people, write it.
Write Your Selfie, your life story in pictures. Work alongside Connie Inukai, who is a retired writing professor, as she guides you in a very quick and easy 6-step process to create a gorgeous hardcover book of your family, its history, and its legacy. Don't you wish that you had something like that from your family? Well, now you can create one for yourself to pass on to generations to come. Go to www.writeyourselfie.com now to order yours.
I viewed your photo book. You have it on one of your websites. You have many websites. And I got to learn all about your childhood from scanning through this book of pictures and captions, and it was really wonderful. Your dad, he was a barber and a tinker, huh?
Yes, he was a barber in World War II. And I found out, well, I knew this, but I never really associated with, he was also an inventor. He just did tinkering all the time. And because he was a barber, he took a metal comb, connected it to an outlet, and so it would heat up. So when you would comb your hair, the comb would be hot. So it would dry it quickly and you could curl it because he was a barber. And this is like perhaps 65 years ago. He never got a patent. He never followed through with it, but I loved it. I was just a kid, and I used to be amazed with my dad's inventions. And they didn't have the internet then, so he didn't know how to get a patent but he would have made a fortune because this is way before, what is the brand, Conair? No, that makes these electric curling irons and stuff. My dad would have made a fortune, but he never did it, so I'm trying to do it. And I realized, I'm thinking about my life, and I'm thinking about, my goodness, my dad was an inventor, so now I'm an inventor. So I had the inspiration in me.
And your mom, I read that she was actually working in law with her brother before she left it to marry your father, and she got divorced, having 6 children. And then began selling World Book encyclopedias door to door.
Yes.
When I learned that, I started to make judgments, and I'm thinking, well, first of all, she's not going to live when she's not going to be happy. I mean, leaving your husband when you have 6 children, that's a huge thing, especially back then. And then she's not just trying to get help or whatever. She's hustling. She's getting out there and she's selling World Book encyclopedias. That's got to be heavy going door to door. So good for her.
Well, I'll tell you, the reason she sold them is because somebody came to our house to try and sell us a World Book. And my mother, of course, couldn't afford it because she was a single mom with 6 kids. So she said, I really want to have it because I believe in education. And the sales rep said, if you sell 10 of them, I'll give you one. So she sold 10, and then she sold 100, and then she sold 1,000. And so she became the top World Book salesperson in the Midwest. Yeah, and she was a hustler. And she also, on the side, I remember these, I was just a kid. She also went to sort of like an extension school and updated her law degree. But she never followed through because she was so successful selling World Books. You know, and now that I'm older and people don't read World Books, my kids wanted to throw it away. And I can't because it's so much of a part of my upbringing, these World Books. So, you know, you can't even give them away. You know, the libraries won't take them, but I still have my World Book Encyclopedia. My mother was also very, she could have been a very successful lawyer. I found a picture of her at her 50-year college law school reunion, and 2 of her former professors became justices of the Supreme Court. One was Justice Earl Warren.
Wow.
That was my mom's teacher. And Harry Blackman was my mom's teacher. And it's very interesting because I have that picture in my book, My Life Story. And I have a grandson who lives with me, and he's 8, and he's doing homeschooling. And he was studying about the Supreme Court because of the trial that's going on now for the new justice. And so I brought him the picture of my mother, his great grandma. And I said, why don't you tell your teacher that your great grandma was one of the first female law students at the University of Minnesota. And her teachers were Supreme Court justices. So, you know, that's all in my book. For my 8-year-old son just loves it. He also loves the story of the Titanic because he got into the Titanic way before I started writing my book. And that wasn't the reason I wrote my book, but he's always so curious. He knows every detail about the Titanic, always YouTubes about the Titanic. So when I told him about my mother, my grandparents, he was very impressed. So that's why I wrote my book, because we all have stories to tell. Not all of them are so impactful, but one of my favorite stories is we used to go fishing when I was growing up, and we would bring home like 100 fish because there were 6 kids. We'd bring them home and my mom would have to clean them, and one of the fish was alive. So we put it in the bathtub and it lived for a few days, and nobody ever used that bathtub for 20 years. So I tell that story to my kids, to my grandkids. You know, it's just a lot of interesting things. They're not earth-shattering, but I want to leave those memories to my kids.
It's a good memory to have. Let me ask you about your ping pong playing. Do you still play?
You know, I was the first girl, with me and Nancy Eigenfeld, we were the first girls on the ping pong team because I loved playing ping pong, and they had only boys. So we said, can we join? So this is so long ago. And they said, yes. So I had so much fun. I got arthritis actually at age 15, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And so my arm cannot straighten, but I can still play ping pong. The only time I can't do it is if somebody knows my disability and they put a ball right next to the net, goes over right on my side, right over the net, I can't reach it. So most people don't take advantage of me, but I can't straighten my arm to get the balls that are far away. But I actually found a little ping pong group right before the pandemic. I was taking my granddaughter to a ballet class, And it was at a rec center, and they had a ping pong team. There was this one woman who wanted to play. She's Chinese. And we were about the same level. And it was so much fun to play ping pong. And they'd actually like to get back into that after COVID is over.
Well, if you had problems with your arm, how were you able to play the violin?
I played it all before my arm. My arm started getting really bad when I had I had a little problem, but when I had my first child, who's 42, I got a really big, severe outbreak of my arthritis, and I wasn't able to go to a doctor or take care of it. So I would be holding him in my arm all the time for months, and that's what happened. I couldn't move it, and it was too painful to move it. So my arm got stuck like this, but now I can do like this. Can you see that? Anyway, I can straighten it almost all the way. This is not on video, but I can't completely extend it.
In high school, I saw that you were the Cleveland Heights class of '66 in January. Why were you graduating in January?
Oh, that's so interesting. Boy, you really read my book. I went to Cleveland Heights High School, and we used to have, it was a big school, so they would have graduations twice a year, in June and in January, and it depended on your birthday. So we had smaller classes in January, and so I was in the cutoff date for the January graduation. Then they had one more class after us, and then they stopped that mid-year graduation. So I actually started college in the middle of the year, which was kind of difficult because everybody knew where everything was, and I was just roaming around getting lost. But I graduated in January.
I saw that you were in the National Honor Society, you were in the choir, orchestra, student council, and you were the senior class secretary. So you're in this big school, and you're just dominating. You're doing really well. You're getting your straight A's. How did you get straight A's? Did you just try harder? Or, I mean, it sounds like your parents, or at least your mom, was really brilliant. So do you think like school came easy to you, or were you really competitive? And did you want to impress your parents?
I'll tell you, I'm not that smart, but I'm a hard worker. I'm a really hard worker. But I had a sister who never saw anything except A's. So I had about a 3.6 grade point average, but she had a 4.0, and she was the valedictorian. So when I would walk into a class, they would always expect me to be the brilliant one. I wasn't. So I think I just tried hard.
All right. I want to ask about Cedar Point Amusement Park. That sounds like a fun job to have. You did that in the summer for a couple of summers?
Yes, I did. I loved it because I wanted to get away. And so I worked at Cedar Point, and I absolutely loved it. My first year, I worked at a ride called Cadillac Cars. And the fun thing was it was all people my age working. And we would go back to our dorm, and we would take the Sky Ride back to our dorm, and we could do anything we wanted there. And the second year I worked there, I was given a promotion, and I worked at the booth to let people in. So they would pay like a $5 entry fee or whatever it was in those days, and we would put a stamp on their hand and a string around their arm and let them in. But a few of my friends and I at the gate, whenever we would see some cute boys there, we would say, how about if you go buy us some ice cream and we'll let you in for free? I shouldn't say this, but I haven't been there for a long time. So we would eat all the time, and we would let all these people, we would let a few, we couldn't eat so much, but we would get pizza, we would get snacks, we would get everything, and we would just sort of let them slip through, and they always came back with food. So that was kind of a fun job.
Yeah, that sounds fun. How much were you getting paid an hour? Do you remember?
I don't remember at all.
Okay. It probably wasn't overly impressive to
No,
today's.
it was, I did it for the fun.
Yeah.
And it was a great social life.
You were was it a French major when you were doing your undergraduate work at Ohio State?
Uh-huh.
And you joined a sorority. Why'd you join a sorority?
I guess because I started mid-year and I didn't know anybody. So I thought that was a good way to meet people, to join a sorority.
Okay. You became a French major. Did you just love the language of French?
Every time I would, yes, I love actually the fact that when people are speaking another language, I start talking back with them, because most Americans don't, but I actually love doing it. And as a matter of fact, you know, so I actually was a French major. I went to France 1 year for a summer when I was in college. And I went there to learn conversational French. And then the next summer I went to Mexico, and I learned Spanish really easily because I had French. And then actually when, after I graduated, my dream was to work at the UN, to become an interpreter. So when I moved there, I went there and I realized, boy, I can't compete with those people, because everybody who's a UN interpreter speaks 9 languages fluently, because they're all from other countries.
Right.
So what I did is I decided to take what I could do, and that was English, because I'm very fluent in English. So I became an English teacher.
You've lived in New York, going to Columbia and Ohio, and I believe you're in Maryland now. And
Yes.
they all have cold winters. Did it ever occur to you that you could move and live in like warmer climates? Aren't your winters brutal?
Yeah, I hate the winter. I hate it. I'd like to move, and I was thinking about moving to Arizona or California. I have a son in Arizona and a son in California. The problem is my daughter got divorced and she moved in with me, and she needs my house because I'm helping her raise 2 young children at my age. So I can't really move because she can't afford the house, and I don't want to sell it.
I think I saw her on a couple of your videos. She was
Uh-huh.
talking about your book. So
Yeah, I used her to promote my stuff because she's cute.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So you were a professor. Did you always identify that you were a college professor? Is that what you wanted to be when you grew up?
No, I wanted to be working with languages, but that didn't work out because I wanted to be an interpreter at the UN, and that's been quite a while since then. But what I did is I got a job in New York teaching English as a second language at something called American Express Language Centers. So I loved it. And then I always have bigger dreams. And this is an interesting story. I went over to Columbia University, and I said, I'd like to teach here. And the director said, well, do you have a master's? And I said, no. And he said, well, come back if you get a master's. So I walked across the campus and I went into the master's degree program at Columbia, and I said, I'd like to start taking some courses here. And it was the summer. So I started taking courses towards a master. And meanwhile, I applied. Now, this is my persistence, and I probably should not brag about this, but after I applied, I got rejected, because they said my GPA was 3.6, and they wanted it higher. And I said to them, excuse me, I'm taking 2 courses and I'm getting A's in both of them. How can you reject me? So I got my master's in Columbia, from Columbia in English. And so then as soon as I got it, it took me 1 year. I went back to the director of the program at Columbia, and I said, okay, I've got my master's now. Will you hire me? And he said, sure. So I realized I'm very persistent. If somebody says no to me, I try to find out why is that a no, and I turn it into a yes. And I do that with everything in my life.
You think you got that from your mom and her World Book Encyclopedia days?
Probably. I don't know. I have no idea. I never asked her.
Because some people, they get a no, they're wiped out. It's over.
No.
And other people, it's just beginning. Oh yeah, you gonna turn me down? I'm gonna show you. Right on.
Well, I realized that persistence is very important. And when I first became an inventor, I went to an inventor's trade show called Impex in Pittsburgh. I had my first invention, and my manufacturer disappointed me drastically and didn't have my prototype ready. but they had a panel from QVC there, and I signed up to pitch. And I pitched with just pictures of my product, and it was kind of embarrassing to me, but they all loved my pitch. And they said, well, come back when you have a product. So a year later, I went back to them, and I had my product, and I said, do you remember me from last year? And they said, yes, we do. And I said, well, I have my product now. And they loved it, they applauded, and I got on QVC. So I realized this is a pattern of somebody who's an entrepreneur, to just be persistent, find out why. That wasn't really a no from them. It was just come back. You know, so I always do that in everything I do. If somebody says no, I just wait and I try again, you know. So I try to encourage other people to do that, because my motto is I'm kind of old, but I still have passion, and passion has no expiration date. So I have the passion of a young person. Well, I can't even say that. I have passion. And nobody told me I'm too old to be an inventor. Nobody told me I'm too old to do new projects. Nobody told me that. So that's how I live my life. Imagine 72 years old and I'm starting a new project, but I'm actually going back to my roots. Like this book that I'm helping people write, because I was a writing teacher for like 40 years. So I have the credentials to help people write their book, even though it's mostly pictures. I have the credentials and I have the degree, and I've been a teacher, so I can teach them how to do it. So I'm kind of going back to my roots, mainly because of the pandemic.
Yeah, you mentioned again your age 72. In fact, when I emailed you about interviewing you, you said, you know, I'm 72. Why do you keep bringing up the fact that you're 72?
Oh, yeah, because when I turned 50, I hated it. I felt so old. And when I turned 60, when I was going to approach 60, I didn't tell anybody my age. I didn't want to say it. And when I turned 70, I own it, because not many 72-year-olds can have the outlook of wonder and excitement. So I'm owning my age, because most people would not say their age, but I'm kind of proud of it, because I'm still going strong and still reinventing myself. Yeah, I think that that's my plus, because most people don't say it. So I'll say it.
Why are you going so hard? I mean, you're retired. I know that you say, well, I could use the money, or you have time on my hands, but you're doing like 4 different things at least. Maybe, I mean, you're probably doing 18 different things, let's face it. I mean, you've got your tip and split, which we haven't even got into. And then you've got your book. You created a book, How I Got My Product on QVC, The Today Show, and more in retirement. It's all about the buzz. You got Grandmapreneur. You write your own Selfie. You're helping raise your grandchildren. Why go so hard at this point?
You know, the main thing that I do is raise my grandchildren. I have to tell you, they come first, because they live with me and I love them and I want to give them everything. And I'm trying to teach them some good values in life. But why am I doing it? I think it's because I can. And I taught for so long. I was a college professor, and I taught college seniors in engineering and computer science how to write effective reports. And I taught them how important grammar was, and how to be succinct, and how to get their word across so that they would become well known in their fields. And I always encourage them to find a career that inspires you. And right towards the end of my teaching, I came up with the idea of tip and split. And I was inspiring all these students, but I figured, okay, Connie, now it's time to inspire yourself. So I had to retire. So I retired at age 68 because I had so many things that I wanted to do. And I started while I was teaching, but that teaching takes a lot of time, especially if you're teaching writing. I don't know if you went to college, but if anybody went to college, you know how you pull all-nighters to get your work done. Well, that's for 4 years, maybe 5, maybe 6. I was pulling all-nighters for 40 years, like about 3 days a month. I would stay up all night to grade reports. And I just decided, you know, I've inspired students for a long enough time, and now it's time to inspire myself. But because of my job, where I taught technical writing, and I had to get them to write a report, so I asked them to pick a dream company that they would love to work for, and then write a brochure for that company. I taught them how to write a brochure. And as they were doing it, I wrote a brochure for Tip and Split behind the scenes. Then I asked them, because they were engineers, I asked them to write an instruction manual because they have to know how to do that in their field. So I wrote an instruction manual for Tip and Split, my invention. And then I asked them to do a number of other things, you know, for the technical writing class that I taught. And meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was building up my own business. So I had to retire because my passion was so strong to get it started. And I think for so long in my life, I was working on other people's dreams. So when you start after your retirement, you ask, what drives me? Well, now I have the time to do it. Except my grandkids, they come first. But I have the time. I'm not doing it for money. I'm certainly not doing it for money. I'm doing it for passion. It's the gift that I have, because I do get Social Security and a pension, and those are enough to get me by. And so I don't need anything fancy. So I get to live my life for passion, which is one of the benefits about growing older. You don't have to work to support a family anymore. You can work for your passion. So
it's a great reason. Connie, what is the Tip and Split?
Well, it's the first problem I noticed as I was getting older was my eyes were getting worse. And I would go out to dinner with my friends and couldn't see many restaurants. The menu, the writing on the menu was too small for us to see, and the restaurant was too dark. So I would look around for a light, a candle, hold up the menu next to the candle, and we would pass around reading glasses. And I would always forget my reading glasses. I actually never had reading glasses, but I would borrow someone else's. And I said, why can't somebody come up with a solution to this? So I invented Tip and Split. The name is a little bit misleading, because the reason I invented it is because it's a handheld magnifier. It's a magnifier and it has a light. It's not as distracting as the light on your smartphone. And so you can see the menu clearly. And then I also added on a calculator, not a typical calculator, but a calculator that just will add on a tip and split the bill in 3 seconds. So I called it Tip and Split. And I actually love my product, and everybody else loves it too. I think I'm running into a little bit of a problem. I haven't really been promoting it recently because of the pandemic. I do not encourage people to go out to eat in restaurants right now, so which is why I'm focusing on Write Your Selfie. But it's a wonderful invention, and actually one of my biggest traits is that I'm always persistent, as I spoke about, and I'm always pitching. And in February, right before the pandemic, I pitched to a panel and I won the contest. And this was about Tip and Split. It was before Write Your Selfie. And they loved it. They loved my product and they liked my passion. And so the company is representing me, and they're going to get me on Home Shopping Network and the Canadian Shopping Network and QVC again for the Christmas season. I hope the pandemic doesn't ruin that, but I'm optimistic. I love, I love what I do. I love my tip and split. So the major objection I get to it, I'm going to talk about that, is from millennials who say, why do I need that? I have a phone and I can figure out the tip and split on my phone. And they said, well, you're not really my target audience and you don't have bad eyes. You have no idea how hard it is for us to see. And they say, well, we can also magnify the menu on our phone, like we can take a picture of it and enlarge it. I said, what older person is going to take the trouble to go through all that process to get to see it, to use a magnifier? Besides the fact that I'm of a different generation, and in my generation, we don't carry our cell phone every place we go. For example, when I'm playing with my grandkids, I don't have my cell phone glued on and texting. The same thing in a restaurant. If I go out with my friends, we're not sitting there on our cell phones texting each other and looking at pictures and looking through our emails. We focus on the meal and our friends. So I think bringing a smartphone to the dinner table is generational. If I'm going out with somebody and they're constantly on their phone, I would not really enjoy the meal. So my product is for people who want to enjoy the moment. So I have a website called tipandsplit.com. And actually that was my first website I ever made. And then I had Write Your Selfie, writeyourselfie.com. And so then I created a new website, which is like an umbrella, and I call Grandmapreneurinventor.com, where you can find tip and split and write your selfie. And by the way, I wanted to call it Grandmapreneur.com, but the to get that name, I have the trademark on the name, but in order to get that domain, they wanted me to pay $3,000 to get Grandmapreneur.com. So I just said, okay, Grandmapreneurinventor.com. So that's my umbrella where you can find how to get a tip and split, how to do your write your selfie. And on Grandmapreneur, I'll have this interview because I have all my speaking engagements.
It doesn't surprise me, the price. There are a lot of cyber squatters. You have a book, How I Got My Product on QVC, The Today Show, and more, ... in retirement, it's all about the buzz. You were talking about being concise. Why have such an enormously long name?
I think the reason I chose that name is because I wanted to be a speaker at an event. And I couldn't think of a topic that they might want to, choose me as a speaker for. So I just chose this name as I want to talk about how I got my product on QVC, The Today Show, The View, and more in my retirement. It's all about the buzz. And it worked. So that was the name of my book. And it is only 25 pages long. And actually, if you want to read it, if you sign up to Grandmapreneurinventor.com, when you subscribe to that, you get my book for free. Anybody who does that. Because one of the things that I don't know about is I'm not great at marketing in certain aspects. I have 0 mailing list. No, I have 10 people on my mailing list. I just don't know how to get people. So I'm trying to build my mailing list. And I don't even know what to do with it when I get it. So I'm going to just tell people, sign up, subscribe, and then I'll figure out what to do with it. I'll probably send out, messages every once in a while. But they can read my book, and I give great buzz tips on how to get publicity. Because one of my big things that I talk about is that everybody's trying to take your money to get publicity. And I've been guilty of hiring people, and I've hired people after I got all my publicity by myself. And but I've paid money to publicists, and it's kind of sad because they've gotten me 0. And actually my son, he's controlling my money for me. And I told him, I think I'm gonna hire somebody. He says, don't do it, Mom, I've got a better idea. Why don't you get this book, How I Got My Product on QVC, The Today Show, The View, and more in retirement, and read that. Don't bother hiring somebody else. So I'm going to be speaking next week at a conference in Delaware, and I'm going to be talking about how to get publicity. And the person who asked me to speak, I met her at an Invention meetup group from my area. She used to live in the DC area, and she just loves the idea of everything. So I'm going to be a speaker about how to get publicity. So she contacted me like a few months ago. I was out of the blue. You know, she moved to Delaware and she's running this conference. So you never know, like, you know, I'm doing it for free. I do everything for free, but I just love to help people. So my next book I'll do is my new book, on my Write Yourself, is called "This Is My Life." That's short, but that's not for sale. That anyone can see it.
Looking back, you were a professor for like half your life, and when you look back on it, what do you say that you enjoyed the most about it?
Being a teacher, I just loved meeting students. I loved inspiring students. What I would do is, I remember this one class where I put people in groups halfway through the semester so they can learn teamwork and they can come up with a group project. And I had 3 people who were totally non-students. So I put them in a team together. They never did anything. I put them together. They wrote the most dynamite report. And on the cover of their report, they had a picture of the 3 of them holding hands. And on the last day of class, they had to present their report. Everyone comes in jeans and a sweatshirt. They came in suits. They were so proud of their work. And I was even more proud of them. And I liked giving them a different look because the course I taught was a dreaded course, a technical writing. Who wants to take that? So the first day of class, I would say to them, how many of you are graduating seniors? And they would all raise their hand. I said, can't put it off any longer, can you? And I got them inspired. So that was my favorite part. I have so many examples of people who absolutely hated writing, but it's a necessity. Anybody can become a good writer, anybody. So I like to teach that. So I liked it, but it was very time consuming.
Well, I want to thank you, Connie, for being our guest today on the Invention Stories podcast. But before I let you go, I'd like to ask you one final question. That is, and you probably get asked this a lot, somebody listening has an idea for an invention. They don't know anything about the inventing process or what to do, how to start, where to go. And they ask you for your advice. What advice would you give them?
So if I had to do it again, first of all, if you have an idea, you know, the fact is almost everybody in the world has an idea in their head. Just very few of them proceed with it. So I would say Google your idea, see if it's been invented or not. And if it hasn't been, then you proceed. Now, I did something that I did it on my own because I didn't know any better. But if I had to do it again, I would hook up with Stephen Key, who's the founder of Invent Right. And I've met him a few times. He's incredible, and he helps you proceed with your invention. So even if it's just a picture, you can get it licensed, and you don't have to go through the hard work. He will lead you through the whole process of development, and you don't have to manufacture it. That's how I would go the next time. So I would say, make it easy. He has a book called One Simple Idea. I've read it many times, and it's how to go through the inventing process. I am not going to rewrite the work of experts, but it's all in there now. And if that's how I would go, it's much perplexing to let somebody else go through the process for you. And I would say good luck and follow your dreams.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I keep on my desk my favorite quote, which I will end with. It's by Aaron Hansen, and it says, "What if I fall Oh, but darling, what if you fly? So you should think about that. That's a quote that sits on my desk every day. So just try it. You know, we're all going to fall at some points, but if you don't try, you will never succeed.